Hello everyone, this is Cross. What I'd like to talk to you about today is my Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition campaign. This is journal entry number 12. So, what do we have to look forward to? The players were talking previous session about potentially going to go figure out what a guild is. In a previous session, Lesage offered them the ability to waive the fees. They can go create a guild and waive the fees for creating a guild. Alternatively, she can just owe them a favor. So I talked about how that made a choice, but then the question came, what are the benefits of a guild? Why would they do this? Why is creating a guild the same thing as Lesage owing you a favor? So with these different things in mind, I set out and created what I feel was a decent system. First thing is, I wanted to make sure that the players were in control of their own guild. So while the NPCs kind of have some sort of influence over what's going on, you're essentially registering your business, your company, with the city. And what does that mean? What does it mean in Lesage? What does it mean if you were to do it elsewhere? So these are the questions that I set out to answer. Lesage is a free city, so I wanted to make registering a guild in Lesage, I wanted to make it free. What I also wanted to do was sort of give them the idea that creating a guild in Lesage was going to become, this was an opportunity. It's not something that you can just throw away and then come back later and do. Madame Rosaline mentioned that they were not recruiting, or they were not accepting applications at this time for new guilds, which means your potential to just come back and create a guild later is diminished. So again, it kind of puts a little bit more stress on this decision. Do I want the favor, or do I want this one opportunity to create a guild? At this point, we'd introduced a character. He's now actively traveling with the party. That's good. Success. And I wanted to kind of touch base again with the architect. So he was there at the Temple of the Architect, where Clara was able to pay and get Ashley recharged. I wanted the architect to be a little special, so I gave him the ability to kind of overcharge her battery by 50%, which is going to give Clara a little bit more freedom in the coming days to use Ashley a little bit more freely. So those are just a few choices that I had made. Our major scenes was we went to the Temple of the Architect, then we went to see Madame Rosaline to determine what a guild is, and then returning to the inn, getting a different room, and then seeing how the room had changed in regards to who entered the room first. That wasn't necessarily something that I had come up with previously. It was just something that I thought of as they were going to go explore their room. And I was just thinking, man, it would be really cool if the room, instead of what it was just a representation of what that person feels comfortable in, or something like that. So I thought it would be interesting to kind of show off Seiji's homeland a little bit, kind of a window into that environment. And it seemed to work. It was definitely an interesting thing. So now we're kind of going into the next few sessions. Now, keep in mind that this story arc is the first real story arc. The first mission was kind of an introduction to the campaign. Let's go do something and come back real quick. This story arc has been sort of the story of them going to guard this caravan. This is their ultimate goal, is to go get this caravan and bring it back to Rye Hill. And this is just the stories that happen along the way. I feel that it has been a decent story. It has been a lot more than, okay, you go to the town, you get the caravan, then you bring it back and you might get attacked a couple of times. This seemingly simplistic story has turned into a major arc just by incorporating travel and incorporating a lot of other different things going on into the game. And it's made the world feel a lot bigger, just simply because there's so much to do. More importantly, there's no way to get to it all. These jobs and these things are just happening. So, with that being said, those were the different things why I did them in this session. I would like to talk for a minute about kind of what's going on as far as where some of these stories are coming from. And I had a discussion with somebody recently about, trying to give some advice about how some of these stories come into play for me. So what happens is I may create an adventure. I may say there's this thing going on. Okay. There's some sort of ancient ruins or something to go explore. There's just something going on. Some reason, some guy wants you to go someplace. All right. And now I also have these other maybe 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or however many other hooks where some guy wants you to go someplace. And then this lingo is important. Either the NPC wants you to go somewhere to do a thing, or you want yourself to go somewhere to do a thing. Either way, somebody is giving somebody a task to complete somewhere. Well, along the way, there are other things that are going on in play. So let's say, I've got these 5 or 6 things that I want them to do. Well, a few of them are maybe dungeon crawls. A few of them are just hunting quests or something. It just kind of depends. And each of them have their own monetary value. What I would like to see then is the players kind of progress towards that location. I feel that a lot of the stress of preparing a tabletop game is feeling the need to have everything prepared all at once. So the mystery behind the table of I had these 6, 4 to 6 story arcs that I had all the maps prepared and everything. That's just completely false. What I had prepared was how much each job was going to be, who they needed to talk to about the job, and a few general notes on the story at hand that I could kind of glean. Again, prepared as if the players were not that the players were not going to be involved in this story. So this guy is going to do this and he's going to do this. Or he's going to wait. He's going to put this notice on the notice board and he's going to wait so long. And then after that time, he's maybe going to go take matters into his own hands. And that's the reality of it. And that may be as far as I got. And then I will determine when that time comes, kind of what happened to him. So I don't sit there and prepare all these maps and do all these things and everything. I just kind of develop the story. Well, if you don't have the maps prepared, how do you have them ready all the time? Well, what I've done is created a catalog of other things that could happen along the road. And then I incorporate these things into the story as it's going. So having a note about, the Forest of Sorrows that came up. Well, that was just a note in my Scrivener, so to speak, that was a thing that could happen. So I basically knew that somewhere the Forest of Sorrows was going to spring up and this event was going to happen. Okay. So now, as the players are heading to a place, somewhere along the road, this event happens. Well, now no longer is the Forest of Sorrows event somewhere, it's here. It's where the players are. And then story can start spiraling out from you just placing this. So for example, if you built a random encounter that had a couple of orcs and maybe 4 wolves, and it's just in the wilderness somewhere. Okay, so you kind of have this encounter ready and prepped, and you have the map made, and you have the tokens. What that means is somewhere there's a couple of orcs roaming around with 4 wolves. Well, as your players are traveling, they might be traveling to the ancient ruins of whatever, and you don't have the map prepped. Okay, that's where they're heading, and you're sitting there going, I don't have the map prep. Well, there's no need to panic in this. All you need to do is just keep telling a story. You've got 4 hours of a session, maybe 5, 6 if you guys really play for a while. But 4 to 6 hours, I feel, is where most games land. What you need to do as a DM then, if you're trying to go for the style of this wide open sandbox, is basically allow your players time to RP. They'll take up scene time if you've encouraged, the fireside chats like what happens in our game. Those things will start taking up time. If those things are not taking up enough time, if you need to throw in a random encounter, you can throw it in their face and just say, you're traveling along and then this happens. And then you can determine a few things. How fast are they traveling? Are they traveling fast, medium, or slow? If they're traveling slow, they might come up across the orc scouting around, and they might be able to ambush them. If they're traveling at a medium pace, they might both run into each other. And if they're traveling fast, the orc might hear them coming or notice them coming, or one of the wolves kind of catches their scent and they prepare an ambush so that they get a surprise round. So it kind of depends on, these are the choices that your players made that affect what happens later. So then, now no longer is there 2 orcs and 4 wolves somewhere in your world. They're here. Well, where did these orcs come from? Is there a tribal village nearby? Okay, so is this a scouting party? How far away are they from the orc village, or the orc tribal huts, if you will? Determine in your head, okay, they might travel for a day out, or maybe 2 days out. They'll scout for 2 days out. Well, divide a day up into 4 sections, and there's 2 days, so roll 2d4, and that will determine how far along this orc has been on his travel before he encountered the party. That determines how far away the orc villages are. If you roll 2 ones, the orc would be half a day away, basically. So half a day away, they're really close. They're very close to this tribe. Well, then determine where is the village at. Is it north? Is it south, east, west, whatever? You could roll randomly if you wanted. And then from that die roll or that decision, you determine what direction the players are headed. So if you determine that the village is north and the players are heading north, in about half a day they're going to run into orc camps. Could be very bad. Whereas if it's south or if it's east and they're heading north, they might instead run into a second scouting party. So you can go ahead and start prepping that real quick. In Roll20, you can do it very easily. So then the players, they might start moving a little slower. They might come across this. You kind of give them the opportunity at this point to determine how they want to engage this second scouting party. If they go around it, okay. If they engage it, okay. If they just sit there and wait for it to pass, okay. Each of these decisions kind of helps influence the story that's happening. So what happens next? Well, you determine if there's any more scouting parties. Probably not. If I'm assuming at this point that the camp is about a half day's east of the first location. And so what they did was send scouts in every direction out for 2 days to report what they find and then come back. Okay, that's what their objectives are. That's why they're out here. What happened, the ideal goal was for all of them to go out for 2 days and then come back after another 2 days. So what happened is the players became involved in the story and stopped the ones heading west from completing that goal. Okay. So what would have happened if the players never got involved? All the guys would have come out. They would have gone out for 2 days. They would have scouted. They would have come back. And after another 2 days, they would have reported in. Okay. But the players got involved. And they changed what was going to happen. So now the players, they may not have had a choice in the first encounter to engage, depending on how fast they were traveling. If they didn't learn their lesson and they're still traveling at fast pace, they might not have a choice for the second one. But if they slow down, they might have a choice for the northwestern scouting party. So if they kill this group and then continue on the travel, they're heading north. So the northern party is not going to intervene with them. They continue on their journey. Okay. So at this point, you have how the players interacted with the story. They killed the west group. They did something to the northwest group. And now we need to determine how that affects things. So roll kind of a d20 and just kind of determine if the orcs discover they're only half a day away. Did some other orcs find the defeated parties or not? If you roll low, maybe they didn't. If you rolled high, they might find them really quickly. But ultimately, use the numbers that you have to determine when they're going to figure it out. The die roll kind of determines how soon they figure it out. So they were meant to be gone for 4 days. They only made it half a day before the party intervened, which gives them 3.5 days before everybody's supposed to return. Determine how long the party's been traveling, and after 3.5 days, the orcs are like, well, where is so and so and where is so and so? So then they're going to send out another party out to find them, and it's going to take them roughly half a day, because that's how far away that it was when the party engaged them. So best case scenario for the group is the orcs find out about 4 days later what had happened. Now, if they only killed the one group and the northwest group, if they didn't see anything, or if they didn't get encountered, or if they didn't, if nothing happened there, the northwest group is going to be fine. The southwest group is going to be fine. So maybe the western group dying was a lone incident, something that just was an unfortunate maybe they don't quite figure out what happened. But if both groups die, one group is a coincidence, but two groups is a pattern. And that's something that, the orcs might be able to put together, and they might want revenge. So they'll put together a raiding party. Well, determine how many orcs they fought. So if they fought 2 in the first group and 4 in the second group, well, the orcs are going to know that this group can handle 4 well-trained orcs. So we're not going to use 4 orcs. We're going to use 12 orcs maybe. So at this point, you can kind of determine that the orcs are now tracking the players north, and how many days will it take for them to arrive wherever the players are. So if the players are in a dungeon for a day or 2, you're going to be able to put on a map or on a marker and just kind of count down until the orcs essentially track down the players. And that's how I come up with a lot of this content. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoy this type of content and everything. If you have any sort of questions or comments or anything, just feel free to post those below, and we'll see you next time.